Happy Monday, one and all. Welcome back to the channel. It is countdown day, of course, here on the channel. And as voted on by fans all across social media, this time we're looking at the top 10 Transformers groups that aren't combiners. I suppose we could say subgroups that aren't combiners. That's going to be our focus this time around in the latest GotBot Counts Down. Hey one, hey all, welcome back to the channel. I'm your host, your most humble of hosts, Dennis Moulton, aka GotBot. As always, man, please like, comment, share, of course, subscribe, and while you're at it, light them up, baby. Hit that notification bell, please. It helps me out a ton, and it lets you know when content of all sorts goes up here on the channel. Check out Machinery of Man, The Everything Factor, all the groups that I'm either a mod or an admin for, as well as all of my social media links. All of that in the description down below. Also in the description down below, and if you are in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use the donate link. You can check us out on Patreon. You can see what we have to offer to you through Spring, or of course you can hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member. Top 10 groups that are not combiners. Now, a couple of people tried to vote for Autobots and Decepticons. No, those are the main factions. Plus, within each of those, there are several who are combiners, who do connect together, right? So I said, you know what? No, that's not going to fly. We're looking for like subgroups, right? Most people got it, but a couple of people tried to be coy, tried to be a little, a little bit what's the word I'm looking for? A little bit funny with their voting, with their selections. I get it. However, naturally, Autobots and Decepticons would be just too broad. Our buddy Ken, shout out to Ken, he said Transformers, even though lots of Transformers do combine. So, like, ones like that got disqualified. And indeed, there may be one or two even who made the list that will require some explanation as to why they made the list. Let's do our honorable mentions first. Within the honorable mentions, these are ones that got votes. They were close to making it on the final list, but they did not make it, make the cut for the top 10. And the honorable mentions include the Minibots, the G1 Minibots. Yes, absolutely, that would be a group. If for no other reason, they're a group because of their diminutive stature, right? But they don't combine. Granted, there were some Micromaster combiner groups and whatnot, but in general, when we think about Cliffjumper and Bumblebee, and we think about Brawn and Outback and Pipes and Huffer and Warpath and Powerglide and Beachcomber, you get the idea, right? The Minibots are small, the Minibots are great scouts, great spies, and some of them really strong. Shout out to Brawn. But they don't combine. We also had the Power Masters, or God Masters, if you will, got some votes. That being, for example, Power Master Optimus Prime, or any of the ones who had the engine block little partner that went in them and helped them to transform and powered them up and whatnot, right? Yes, absolutely. Not really combiners per se. Some might say, yeah, well, that combines with the bigger bot. I suppose, but they're not a combiner. They're not a gestalt, as they call it, like we have with Devastator or Computron, for example. Battle Chargers. Really, there's only two of them, and that being Runabout and Run Amok. Yeah, they would be a group. They don't combine. And in general, I thought that this was a little bit broad. Junkions, I allowed it because, while I'm sure they could combine because they're all made out of junk, why not? In general, that's not what we really saw in the original G1 cartoon. So I see them more as a race, more as a subspecies than a group. But you know what? I allowed the votes. Why not? Junkions. Besides, none of those made the list. Who did? Well, you know what we're going to do. We're going to do what we always do, and we're going to kick things off with number 10 first. Now, just so you know, before we start going through, there's a couple of these groups that I do not have any representation of. But for those groups that I do have a representation of, I just picked one member of that group just because it's the easiest way of kind of handling this list. And at number 10, we're going to kick things off with Target Masters. This, of course, is Spinister with his two Target Masters, but we know Scoop is a double Target Master. We have Cup and Hot Rod and Blur who got Target Masters. Cyclonus did. Scourge did. We all know Nightstick and Fracas. We all know Firebolt and Haywire and Recoil. know that there are the Autobot kind of main lads, Point Blank and Peacemaker, for example, and I don't know who's with Crosshairs. I can't remember exactly who's with Crosshairs now. Pinpointer, maybe. The point is that Target Masters are a unique subgroup, both Autobot and Decepticon, where you have the main bot who is partnered with diminutive bots who form his armament. Yes, they're not combiners. They're teammates, they're groups, but they're absolutely not combiners. Target Masters. They took the number 10 slot. Coming in at number 9, we have Soundwave's Cassettes. I suppose you could say Soundwave and his Cassettes. Represented here by Laserbeak. This is actually the version of Laserbeak that came with the Netflix Soundwave. So it's the like Earth mode, I guess, version of the Siege Laserbeak mold, if that makes sense. But again, you have Ratbat, you have Buzzsaw, you have Rumble, you have Frenzy, you have Ravage, you have Slugfest, you have Overkill, you have Squawkbox and Beastbox and Squawk Talk, right? For Squawkbox. Ratbat, I'm not even sure who else, but I mean, there's an army of Cassettes, all loyal to the Decepticons, even more so loyal to Soundwave. Soundwave never got to feel alone. Soundwave virtually never has to feel threatened. And while he can't combine with his Cassettes, they are, when together, a very formidable group, a very formidable force. And for that reason, Soundwave and his Cassettes takes the number 9 slot. Coming in at number 8, they're kind of dumb, but they're also kind of tough, and I'm talking about the Monster Bots. There are 3 of them. This is Repugnus. Of course, there's also Double Cross, or Twinferno if you prefer, and who is the other one? Grotesque. And really, they're best known in Japanese fiction. However, that being said, they've also kind of found a life and a fandom now across the world. Yes, they've been introduced, especially this guy, in other fiction. I think that Repugnus, for example, and I guess subversions of Repugnus were in Cyberverse, if I'm not mistaken. The Monster Bots are... It's interesting. I almost feel like they're somewhat like the Dinobots, though there is more personality here. Like Grotesque is actually, quite intelligent and quite a strategist. They are definitely more popularized in Japan, but they're also very unique characters. For example, the 2 heads of Double Cross tend to argue with each other, right? So there's uniqueness to each of them. They're a very enigmatic group, and they're one that I don't think people would have necessarily thought of or necessarily voted for unless they were familiar with the Japanese fiction, and if they hadn't been done in the Prime Wars trilogy. I don't know if they would have entered the greater pantheon and the greater lexicon of Transformers fandom. Nevertheless, they did, and the Monster Bots take the number 8 slot. For number 7, I actually don't have any version of this group, but it's, well, this group. That's right, it is O1 RID Spy Changers. Of course, these are a group of basically Autobot ninjas. They can kind of drive on anything, and I think they can like phase through solid objects and like turn invisible and stuff. They're made up of Wars and Rev, Mirage, Ironhide, Crosswise, and I think Hotshot. I think Hotshot's the leader, actually. I'll admit, I don't know a ton about this group. However, they are a well-known group, they are a fast group, they are a capable group. They're kind of like, if anything, I've always seen this group as like the Autobot version of the Stunticons, so to speak. Right? If the Stunticons became good guys that could drive on anything and focus their aggression and their kind of maniacal nature into disciplined martial arts and become ninjas, then we'd sort of get the Spy Changers. Nice to see RID 01 getting a bit of love. Spy Changers, they took the number 7 slot. Number 6 are Headmasters. Now, specifically, it's the Japanese iteration of Headmasters, where the bigger body is just a transtector. And really, there's a whole group of Headmasters that, are all diminutive with bigger bodies that fled the Autobot Decepticon war and whatnot. They're their own unique thing. I was kind of on 2 minds about this group as well, because of the same reason as with the Junkions. Like, I almost sort of see them as a subspecies, a sub-race, so to speak. But you know what? They are a recognized group, there's no doubt about it. And while they do connect to Transtectors, that's not exactly a combiner. Even if we went with the North American version, again, they're not exactly combiners. It's just, they're Headmasters, right? But this is one of those that needed a little bit of explanation. Specifically, this is the Japanese Headmasters group, and the justification that people said was, you know, them connecting to their Transtector is really no different than any of us getting in our cars to drive or getting on our bikes to pedal. I get it. I absolutely get it. Headmasters, yeah, why not? They took the number 6 slot. And here we are once again at the most coveted of locations, the good old halfway mark. And at the halfway mark, we have perhaps the main group that loves Energon more than anything else. I'm talking about the Insecticons. Yes, the Insecticons do not combine. And admittedly, there's the main 3 that we know. There's also the deluxe Insecticons. And even the main 3, at the very least, though I assume the deluxes can also do this, they're able to clone themselves. Again, a veritable army. They don't combine, but they can absolutely overwhelm any bot with their sheer numbers if they choose to clone themselves. Always hungry, always insatiable, always a threat. The Insecticons, they took the number 5 slot. And at number 4, we have another example of a group, a team that I don't have any version of, at least not yet. Yeah, that's right. It's the DJD, the Decepticon Justice Division. Really a branch of their army, perhaps the most maniacal group on this list. Tarn is almost obsessed with Megatron and kind of defending his will. And him and his group, you know, they track down dissenters and those that try to run away and those who question Megatron and those who are deemed to be traitors. And they go on this list, and basically, if the DJD finds you, you're going to be disappeared and you ain't coming back. They do their hunting aboard the ship, the Peaceful Tyranny, I believe it's called. And so maniacal are they that many of them actually turn into different torture devices. I mean, it's a bit messed up when you really think about it. Fearsome, formidable, can even rival Phase Sixers, like Six Shot, for example. This is a dangerous team. This is a team to be feared. This is a team that you don't want to see coming. Unfortunately, if you do see them coming, it's probably already too late, and you're probably already on their list. Yeah, the DJD and their hunt for Megatron Justice takes the number 4 slot. We are into the top 3, and among the top 3, we have one of the most iconic of all subgroups, that being the Seekers. I'll say this. Most people just voted for the Seekers in general. And that could include Thundercracker, Skywarp, and Starscream. But, to be fair, some people said the subgroup of the Coneheads. Some people said the subgroup of the Rainmakers. Some people said the subgroup of the Welcoming Committee. Some people said just Seekers in general. Like, there's lots of them that go unnamed. They're a body type. They're a soldier type. They're almost like, Viacons for that. And they just happen to be led by a few that are high-ranking and somewhat prolific. The Seekers, whether you want to attribute that to just the main trio, whether you want to attribute that to the Coneheads, whether you want to attribute that to the Rainmakers or the Welcoming Committee, or just the concept of Seekers in general. Yeah, I agree. Seekers are formidable. Seekers are dangerous. Seekers are among the front-line henchmen of the Decepticon forces. And they do not combine. The Seekers, they took the number 3 slot. Much like you don't want to see the DJD coming, if you're on the Autobot side of things, you don't want to see this team coming. Represented here by Impactor, I'm of course talking about the Wreckers. The Wreckers basically do the shady work that the Autobots either don't want to know about, don't want to know the methods that it's done by, or really aren't equipped or prepared to handle something. Like, you need a cleanup crew, or you need something a little bit not above board done, or you need something that's going to be pretty darn messy. You call in the Wreckers. And depending on the continuity in the fiction, there have been many who have been a part of this group, from Bulkhead and Wheeljack to Impactor and Springer, from, I don't know, Skylinks I think is in one of them, to Whirl, to Rack and Ruin, and so many more in between. The Wreckers, they do the dirtiest jobs of the Autobots, and they are absolutely renowned for doing it enough that they were able to take the number 2 slot. And here we are at the very tippy top, the number 1 group within Transformers that's not a combiner. And it has to go to the, G1 Dinobots. And I specify G1 because there are versions of the Dinobots where they do combine. There are versions of the Dinobots where they do not combine. It's so weird because the Dinobots could really appear on both lists. Like if we look at, for example, G1, which is where the vast majority of votes were for, on the show they never did combine. Granted, there was a bit of a messed up experiment in the comics where they became the Beast. It wasn't really a combiner as much as them like being meshed together. It was so weird, and it was a terrible comic. You know, in the High Moon, is that what it's called? High Moon Studios games, the War for Cybertron, Fall of Cybertron games, they're not combiners there. But then in Power of the Primes, they were via Volcanicus. In RID 2015, Grimlock was not a combiner, but in Cyberverse, again, if I'm not mistaken, we got Volcanicus. We had Volcanicus in the Power of the Primes little Machinima trilogy. It depends on the fiction. The movies, they are not combiners. So when people voted for the Dinobots, I really had to specify. So, number 1, by far, I mean, took the lead by dozens upon dozens upon dozens upon dozens of votes. Yeah, the G1 animation cartoon Dinobots are the number 1 group that do not combine. And that's it. We've gone from 10 down to 1 once again. Who else? What other groups got some votes? Team Prime from Transformers Prime, because really there was only 5 of them. The Lightning Strike Coalition, Legs and Arms, I don't know what that is. The Mercenaries, who else? The Coneheads I already mentioned. The Scavengers. The Firecons, Rescue Bots, and Rescue Bots Academy, to be fair. The Omega Sentinels, right? The ones that are like Omega Supreme. The Predators, the Accelerators, the Sharkticons, the Triggercons, the G1 Fembot group. Again, the argument could be made, or Thea, but if we're talking the G1 animation, they did not combine there. The Omnibots, the Viacons from Transformers Prime. The Triple Changers, the Turbo Masters, and for good measure, the Throttlebots. Let me know if your favorite groups made the list or if they didn't. You know, I appreciate you guys coming by, giving me some of your extremely valuable time. I do know how important it is to you. If you're in a position to help the channel to grow, you can use that donate link and check us out on Patreon, see what we have to offer to you through spring, or of course you can hit the join button right here on YouTube and become a channel member at any time. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, man. Stick around and have some fun with us here on the channel, and especially don't forget that somehow, some way, each and every single solitary day, you do make a difference in the world. And I look forward to the next time that you and I get together to have another visit, either in the live streams on Thursday nights, at the stop motion premieres, or the old-fashioned way right here, inside the videos.